everyone. I'll introduce everyone. Welcome, everyone. This is Michael Gibbs from Go Cloud Architects, and I'm really excited. I have Sandeep Das here. Today, we're going to be discussing architecture and DevOps, and these are two fantastic careers. I've lived in the architecture world for almost 30 years now. Sandeep has been in the DevOps world for a very long time. It's such an honor and a privilege to have Sandeep here. Sandeep and I are both people that are on a very similar mission. Sandeep is in India, and he's basically providing a tremendous amount of high quality free DevOps training. I like to watch what he does because I think it's quality training. He gets deep, he covers content, and he covers things that are actually relevant to the DevOps community, so much better than what I see in certification courses. And because of that, I'm honored and privileged to have Sandeep here. A little bit about me, if you're new to me, because you're coming from Sandeep's audience. My name is Mike Gibbs. I'm the CEO of Go Cloud Architects. I've been working in tech now since 1993. I say 25 years because it makes me feel horrible when I say 1993, but I've been working in tech now for that long. I've been an architect now for well over 25 years, and I've loved every minute of it. Now, in my almost 30-year architecture career, but I'll say 25, I've been coaching and mentoring others to help them get their first tech jobs for over 2 decades. So I know what it takes to go from engineer to architect, engineer to business development, engineer to sales, engineer to leadership. And that's where I focus my time, on generating cloud architects, teaching those cloud architect skills. Today, what we're going to do and how we're going to do this with Sandeep and I is we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about architecture. Sandeep is then going to describe what is DevOps, because they're very important careers, both of them absolutely essential. But what we find is there's some AWS course providers that are saying, hey, if you want to be an architect, study DevOps. No, if you want to be a DevOps engineer, study DevOps, and it is great. But if you want to be an architect, study architecture. These are different careers. So I'm going to kick it off real quick at the what is architecture and the skills necessary for architecture. Then I'm going to turn it over to Sandeep, and he's going to describe what is DevOps and those tools and those skills that are necessary for DevOps. And then we'll have a discussion why you need different skills to be an architect versus an engineer. Both jobs are equally important. I could design it, but if there's no engineers to build it, what good is the design? And if there's nobody to interact with the customer, find out all the customer's business, legal, and technical requirements, and then sell the architecture to the customer, there's nothing for the engineers to build. So this is a mutually beneficial, very synergistic relationship required to do any technology. Your engineers, your architects, so critical. So I'll kick it off with what is a cloud architect? And I'm going to turn it over to Sandeep, and he's going to talk about what is DevOps, and more specifically, what is cloud DevOps. I'm going to kick this off with what is architecture. I'm going to make it very clear. Architecture is a design role. That's it. It is a design role. Architects like me design systems. Here's the process. I meet with the client. I meet with the client's executives first. And when I meet with those executives, I found that their business goals, what's the strategy? What's the vision for the organization? From there, I find out the business pain points. What challenges does the organization have? I ask about the organization's competitors and what they're doing, so I can figure out what we can do to meet or exceed the business. I then will evaluate their current systems, and I might need a team of 20 people to evaluate their current systems. I've worked on designs that took 50 people a year and a half just to figure out what happened in a customer. Now, granted, these were billion-dollar architectures, but I'm just trying to say that's how much investigation gathering is there. Now, after we gather these requirements, as an architect, I get with my architecture team. Now, I'm a cloud architect and a cloud infrastructure architect and a cloud security architect because I'm one of the original CCIEs from Cisco, and I've been in networking for a while, so that's where I live. And a team is going to have an infrastructure architect like me, some generic cloud architects. They're going to have some security architects. They'll have some IAM architects, and yes, IAM is very different than security. They will have some cloud engineers that are going to build us and kind of advise us architects, with all the depth that we may or may not have in the weeds of some of these services. We're going to talk to Sysops people. Why are we going to talk to Sysops people? Because Sysops people are the maintenance people. Now, Sysops training does not make you an architect. Opposite careers. In fact, Sysops training will make it harder for an architect to get a job because people will think they're operations as opposed to the executive side of the world. But still, valid. You need them on your career. And then there's going to be a lot of DevOps people on your team, because these guys are excellent at making sure the software is better. It works better. It's less likely to be buggy and speed. So that's the team. So architects like me do this. Now, the skills needed for an architect, let me tell you, before we get to Sandeep, lots and lots of executive presence. Why? You're going to be in front of executives. A lot of communication skills. It doesn't matter how good the design is. If you can't sell the design or communicate the design, no one will adopt it. Assessment skills, questions, super important to kind of ask these questions. Then from there, it's end-to-end system knowledge. That means knowledge of the network and the data center. Why do I always talk about the network and the data center? The cloud's just a network and a data center that's been virtualized. And 90% of what we do as cloud architects is take the things from the network, move them to the data center. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know how to move something that I don't know what it is. I mean, just imagine that. If someone says, speak in another language and you don't know the language, you can't do it. So that's why architects require very special training. They need to know all the systems in the network and the data center, because that's the cloud and that's what's moving to the cloud. So when we train our architects, we don't spend a ton of time configuring S3 buckets, because architects don't do that. Architects design. We train our people into knowledge, deep knowledge of server virtualization and containers. Why? Because that's what the computing platform is in the cloud. After we're done with that, we train firewalls, intrusion detection. Why? VPN control. Why? Because that's the security piece that gets you into the cloud or out of the cloud or protects the cloud. Then when we're done that, we teach the LAMP stack and we make people build it. Why? Because that's when it's going to be used most of the time. From there, we get into systems. We even have our students build a cloud, because how do you know cloud until you build the cloud? We have every student we have build an OpenStack Ansible cloud or a Nutanix cloud or both, and even federate those clouds, because that's the reality. So that's architecture design training, end-to-end system design, substantial business acumen. How do you do an ROI model? How do you get in front of the customer? Executive presence, emotional intelligence. That's how you go, by the way, also from engineer to architect, it's a different skill set. Now, that's the architecture world in a 2-minute summary. Now I want to turn this over to Sandeep and let him tell you about what is DevOps. What is a DevOps engineer? What do they do? Because we architects need to know more about this, and the DevOps people need to know more about architecture. So Sandeep, why don't you take a few minutes and describe what is DevOps?
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the awesome info about the cloud architect role. Now, about the DevOps part, DevOps engineer have to make sure the application that developers building that has to get deployed in the production, staging, or test servers quite well, and then without any issues. And they have to make sure the quality of the code that's going to production is maintaining proper quality, so that something like easiest bug, like very simple bugs cannot happen. And not just that, cloud architects make the design, and as a DevOps engineer, they have to make sure all that setup are in place. They have to make sure that if something goes wrong, they need to collect the logs and analyze it, and then again get back to the developers, cloud architect. That's just a DevOps engineer's entire role is to have the communication. The engineers, like communication with the engineers, the developers who are developing the product, as well as communication with the cloud architects who are designing data system. So entire communication architecture, entire communication process that DevOps engineers have to follow. So it's not just a single role or single just CI/CD. So what happened, like if you ask anyone, people say, oh, it's DevOps, it's CI/CD. No, CI/CD is a part of DevOps, but it's not complete DevOps. DevOps engineer job is to make sure that deployment happen faster, the new features get released faster, and to do that, whatever tools, now it's CI/CD. Now, after 1 year, it will be something else, some other tools. Now, you can see people more and more moving to the serverless technologies. Now there is less and less of the CI/CD concept. It's more of the like version management. So this new concept will come as a DevOps engineer have to follow and of course comply with that, and have to make sure it maintain the quality standard, the code quality standard. It has to be deployed faster. It has they have many deployment strategies, and they have to select which proper strategy should be good for the application. So they have to think about the application itself. Now, cloud architect also have to think about the application before giving the solution, but DevOps engineer also have to give their recommendation to the engineers so that that product can be deployable. So having a product and having a deployable product is a completely different thing until unless someone get jump into actual production application. So the engineers have to also make sure the code, or you can say programmers also have to make sure the code is deployable, followed all the that coding standard and all, and have the test cases, because having test cases is also very important. Previously, before DevOps, what was supposed to be? Previously in DevOps, suppose some engineer had made some changes and they didn't follow the kind of any testing rule or nothing. They push the changes and that go to production. Some bug happen, and all the operation engineers, all the engineers have sleepless nights. Now, with what if the DevOps strategy or DevOps implementation came? Now, as soon as the developer pushing the code, it is going to the source, could be Git, could be Bitbucket, could be anywhere. Now, that code getting built up. Now, there could be Python, it could be Go, it could be Node.js, JavaScript projects, all has the dependencies. So that dependencies will be installed in a virtual environment, then it will get compiled, and then it will run the test cases. Now, this kind of instruction, a DevOps engineer is setting there. Now, test cases are written by developers, could be reviewed by the QA, but a DevOps engineer role to make sure it's in place. That's what the main importance here. So the DevOps engineer, they have to make sure the CI/CD pipeline going well. They have to make sure all the monitoring happening well, because something bug happens, some issue happen. They have to make sure the logs are getting collected, and that log can be human readable, because it could be coming as a binary, it could be coming as a JSON, it could be coming anything. That they have to make sure that's human readable, and they will be giving that to the software developers or cloud architect, whoever the concerned feedback taker are. And then again, there has to go through the coding or whatever. Like suppose it's infrastructure management. DevOps cloud architect given the entire infrastructure. Now it's DevOps engineer role is to make sure they implement the infrastructure in place. Could be like manually, but now it's the age of automation. They have to like use tools like Terraform or Ansible. Maybe Terraform kind of tool, or maybe it's in AWS and it's the CloudFormation. Using these kind of tools, making the entire infrastructure as a code and then deploy it. Now something going wrong, maybe infrastructure level, could be some architecture level, then that feedback has to go to the architecture. Suppose it's related to coding, that has to go to the developers. So this kind of roles a DevOps engineer have to play in their day-to-day basis. So you can see they're kind of king sitting and following, like ordering this happening, like the deployment happening, like the log collection, and they're telling developers to do what they need to do, giving them the feedback, then taking the kind of fresh code as a form of maybe the new pull request or in the latest code repo, and that code getting processed. Again, test happening. If the test failing, the developer has to get notified. So that notification, the alerting part, also a DevOps engineer have to set. So you can see it's not just CI/CD or code getting pushed into production. No, they have some places where you have to make sure the infrastructure working fine in the place. They have to make sure the concerned people like the developers or cloud architect or maybe the QAs, they get notified, because sometime in the deployment pipeline, there is an approval, and that approval has to be done by the QA engineer. But if the QA engineer doesn't get notified, then who will be there to approve even the deployment, right? So all this flow, a DevOps engineer have to kind of make sure in the place, and they have to make sure all the communication happens using whatever tools is required. Okay, so it's not like a particular tool. Now, whatever tool suit the base case, a DevOps engineer have to select that. So this is a DevOps engineer did the job to make sure ultimate goal, the code deploy fine, and to make that possible, whatever need to be done, that need to be done. That's it.
That's great, Sandeep. So thank you for explaining what that actually is. So granted, what you can hear is on one end of the extreme of the world where architects like me, we're customer facing all day. We're designing systems all day. We're documenting systems all day. We're presenting systems all day. And then we're going back to, I like to call them the official smart people, which are the engineering team that's going to build some of these people. So what Sandeep described is, I'm talking about end-to-end system design. I'm talking about the business part of it. I'm talking about the communications, the selling the design. I'm also talking about building the team, which could be 20 people that don't even work for you, that you still have to lead and manage as an architect. So this is a business executive role that's part technical. By comparison, DevOps is a very important thing. Look what he's talking about: speeding software delivery, automation, building things. And he talked about it from the whole holistic perspective and all the teams that are necessary to put this together. So people ask me, hey, I want to be a cloud architect. Should I study DevOps? And I'm like, no. I said, DevOps is great, but you can only be good at one thing. The best way I can describe it is this. When I first went into networking, when you're new, you think you know a lot. So when I first took a CCNA class, the Cisco Certified Network Associate, I'm like, I know networking. A month later, I was a Cisco Certified Network Professional. I'm like, I partially know networking. A year later, after reading 75,000 pages of books and RFCs, I became a CCIE, and I'm like, I somewhat know networking. And then after about 10,000 hours of doing nothing other than BGP, it's like, you know what? I think I'm starting to understand BGP, but there's so much more to learn. So I want you to understand that to be really great at one thing, you can be one thing. To be a DevOps engineer like Sandeep, that's 10 years. I mean, he's really experienced. He's an expert. Now, I can't do what Sandeep would do. I'm not prepared for it. But Sandeep, to do what I would do, would equally take a tremendous amount of training. We would have to teach the executive presence, all those other kind of things. We'd have to teach end-to-end system design. We'd have to teach security systems. We'd have to teach, how do you ask those questions of an executive? Because they're not straightforward. How do you deal with a functional personality type versus an intuitive personality type versus a visionary personality type like me versus a visual, auditory, and kinesthetic person? Super great different skill sets. Now, they're not completely unrelated. Like Sandeep described, we need that to help deploy our situations. So when you start looking at these job descriptions and they have everything, realize you can't be both. I mean, you can know enough about architecture. You can be a very good DevOps engineer and know a lot about architecture. Or you can be a very good architect and know something substantial about DevOps, but they're different skills. Architects don't code. It's not part of our life. I've never coded in 25 years. Sandeep, I don't think you've made it through a day where you haven't done any coding in the last 10 years in some way.
True. I mean, every hours you can say, like, whenever I'm working, in an hour at least I have to touch the coding. Otherwise, that day will not pass. So yeah, so that's true. I mean, I had to code every day. Maybe it's a like deployment script, the shell scripting code changes and all, or maybe creating new scripting, or I'm not working on that. I'm coding some infrastructure related codes in Terraform, or maybe writing some playbooks in Ansible. This kind of stuff we have to do on day-to-day basis, all around the codes. Maybe even I had to do code review also, because sometimes I'm just saying as a use case, one Node.js application having problem. It was not scaling well, okay? And then I have to find out, okay, this process even not utilizing in all the processor, it's just utilizing one single processor. So I have to make sure that that entire application, that Node.js application has to follow the cluster scaling. So these things, as a DevOps engineer, if you know about that particular language, now you don't have to know all the language. Suppose you're working on something, just suppose you're working on Node.js, just for example, then of course learn about how the how the scaling happens. Only your related part, how the scaling happens, how the app can be more efficient. If you follow the rules and match with the code, just ask the developer to show it. If the developer can't show it, they have to first make the implementation happen. If they don't know how, then you may find some solution and give it to them, just as that. But without knowing how to scale the application, how can you help the developers? So that kind of knowledge is also required. So that's the part of the job.
Excellent. And the reason I wanted you to talk about code development is I get a lot of people that reach out to me, and what they say is, Mike, I want to be a DevOps engineer. If I take the AWS certification, am I going to be one? And I say, no. I said, do you know how to code? And they say, no. I said, well, this certification is not DevOps. These are just a couple of tools available on the cloud. Being a DevOps engineer takes deep, deep knowledge of software development, application architectures, automated release cycles. I mean, this is a big job. And I know a lot of people ask me, how do I go from DevOps to architect? And we'll talk about that. Or architects say, I want to know DevOps. And I'm like, well, there's ways to do that. But I want you to understand that certification training is not more than 10% of what's necessary to do it. When we're dealing with cloud architects, 90% of what's necessary is not covered in certifications. And when we're covering with DevOps, I mean, look at the kind of skill that Sandeep has. And that's why we're here, because I deeply respect his skill. He's got a lot of skill, lots of education, right. Far more than just, a DevOps professional certification on AWS. That what 2% of what you know, Sandeep?
Exactly. So whatever covered in certification, but what you face in the real life, I mean, the kind of challenges, the kind of day-to-day that actual skills needed are entirely different. You talk about any certification, that exactly as you say is cover only 10%, more of the theoretical part, or maybe some of the hands-on. But if you work on actual project, actual field work, that's completely different. You might have to use 10 tools to complete one job, or even use the one tool to complete entire job. But you have to make the selection. Now, selecting that and making the changes and making it happen is what is required, not a certification. I mean, you can get a certification, use as a means to get the interview offer, get
Yes.
chance to appear in the interview, but that cannot guarantee you the job, because if you don't know how to perform the task, who's going to give you a job? Ultimate goal of the employee is what? I'm going to give you a salary, or like whatever you want, whatever the amenities you want. You have to make sure this thing is done. I have a deployment, so we are developing a new feature. It has to go to the production flawless. If something happened, it has to go roll back immediately, and there should be zero downtime. Now, if you've never done zero time downtime direct production work or the entire flow work, I mean, you'll be so much pressure, you'll just leave the job and go somewhere else. So you need that kind of knowledge, experience. You have to practice. So whatever you call it, the cloud architect practice or DevOps, all are practices. So you have to keep doing it to understand how this thing works. That people don't know. You cannot become a cloud architect in 1 day, 1 month, or even 2 3 months. You have to practice, keep practicing. Then what is practice, what makes you perfect on the long run, on the like developing product, like releasing the production application, you know what's going to happen, you know what the tools need to be in place to make sure the production go flawless. So that skills they need to develop over time. It cannot happen single day. Like if some cloud architect want to do a engineer job, it cannot happen a single day. You have to learn not just certification, but actual application deployment lifecycle. You have to follow from the source to the deployment, and not just that, monitor the application well. All thing at together, we call it full deployment lifecycle, not just like deployment. People, whenever you heard about like DevOps, oh, it's a deployment. No, it's entire from the source to deploy, and make sure there is a communication in forms of giving feedback or taking feedback via monitoring. So that has to be in place as well. So these are the things we require while doing the DevOps jobs day-to-day basis.
What a great way to explain that. And it's super necessary to have this skill set. So let's look at it this way, because I've been in all these environments. I've been in front of the CEO before, and I brought the most technical engineers I know, people that are some of the smartest people I've ever met. Now, when I speak to the executives, I know what they care about. For example, the CEO cares about the following: business strategy, increasing shareholder value, business continuity planning, meaning if I got hit by a bus as a CEO, who's going to take care of my students, because all my students have to graduate? These are the kind of things that CEOs care about. So how do they get a competitive advantage? So that's the conversation I have. Now, if I were to present to the CEO and I were to talk about the LSAs in an area 0 in OSPF versus an area 1 versus an intra area versus external LSAs, the CEO would look at me like, Mike, you got 4 heads. Now, having said that, their network architects are going to want to hear that. So it's really adopting the right message for the right time. So look, it takes 10,000 hours to be good at anything. One of the biggest problems I have in helping people find their careers is I've got someone and they want to be certified and they want to get hired, and we love that. But here's what they do. They get a little architecture training, a little Sysops training, a little DevOps training, a little bit of scripting training, and then they apply for a job and I interview them. And the reality is, and it's really sad, they've got a lot of little bits of knowledge about a lot of things, but when it comes to doing a job, they don't have enough for any one of it. So when people say, should I study DevOps and architecture? Pick one and be real good at it. Run hard, run fast, be the best you can. And you know what? I do architecture training. Why? Because I've been an architect for almost 30 years. I think DevOps is so important that I've taken 2 DevOps engineers and tried to work with them on to create a how to get your first DevOps position, which I can't teach, obviously. I'm not a DevOps engineer, but these 2 together have about 25 years of coding and DevOps experience and another 25 years of programming experience. So that's how important this career is. It is great, but I want to let everybody know, Sandeep does a tremendous amount of free training on his channel. I looked at all the AWS certification courses that we could find, and I looked at all of them. And I bought all of them, or had somebody from my team buy all of them. And when we reviewed them, here's what we found. Here's S3. Here's how to configure it. Here's an EC2 instance. Here's how to configure it. And you know what happened when I started asking people? I first bought these courses for a friend. He called me back a couple of days later. You know what he said? Mike, I set up an EC2 instance. Mike, I set up an S3 bucket. What's that? And I went, what do you mean, what's that? It's about a year ago. I said, nobody could produce training like this. And I bought them, the 3 most popular ones. They all come from a specific continent. I will never comment negatively on anybody's product, but they all come from a single continent. You guys can think about which continent produces most of this cloud certification training. And I interviewed 1,000 of their graduates, literally 1,000 of their graduates. Everyone knew the name of the service and how to configure it. Not a single person knew how to design it. And most of the people had the recommendations of get 4 associate level certifications. Nobody knew anything. They just knew how to configure, and that's not what architects do. And you know what? That's not what DevOps our engineers do either. And that's when I saw Sandeep and his free training, I reached out to him about 3 months ago and said, wait a second, we've got to do some kind of conversation. Now, he's busy, I'm busy, you know, I'm on 16 hours of phone calls every day for 7 days a week. So it took us a little while, but I want to be on his channel too, because I think this discussion is worthwhile. He's got a tremendous amount of free technical training. I focus, because I typically focus on new careers, I do it a little different. And I'm going to tell you why I do things a little different. If I had Sandeep's technical training for a DevOps engineer, and then I trained interview skills, salary negotiation skills, executive presence, executive communication skills, here's why I do it. Now, when it comes to career progression, it's like a skyrocket when you develop these skills. And when it comes to salary, it's still like a skyrocket, but that's not the only reason. Sandeep is likable, he's strong, and he's capable. And if I interviewed him, I wouldn't even think about it. I wouldn't let him leave my office before I hired him. Why would I be so firm? Because if I don't hire him today, my competitor is going to get him, and that's lethal to me as a business. And I've interviewed for 5 companies, and I've walked out of 5 of them with a job offer within 2 days, including big global organizations, 100,000 people, because they weren't going to let me leave. So why do I teach these skills for new cloud architects? Why do I recommend them for new cloud engineers as well? When I interview someone, and I've interviewed 5,000 people, I've also asked 50 recruiters, as well as 1,000 hiring managers, what you want in an employee. So when we interview people, 50% is related to their technical competency. Well, guess what? If it's your first job, you can't be a 50 out of 50 like Sandeep. It's just not going to happen. I can get you to 35 or 40 out of 50. Sandeep could probably do the same thing on the technical side.
Exactly.
And I know he can. I've seen his training. It's good. And it's free too. Now, where it gets different is if I can get someone a 50 out of 50 on the soft skills, emotional intelligence, attitude, energy, enthusiasm, combined with either his level of technical depth, or I could get similar with my people. Now we've got something. Now we've got someone in an interview that scores an 85 to 90 out of 100. So I encourage you, when you're looking for new jobs, and at some point we'll ask questions about how to go from one to the other. I love the concept. Make sure that you spend a percentage of your time working on the soft skills. Engineers hate when I say this. And in my initial engineering career, when I was an initial CCIE, I was behind the desk all day long. And here's what I noticed. People that had a lot less technical skills kept getting promoted. The people that you'd interview them, they knew nothing. All of a sudden they're earning double the salary, the smart engineer, and it used to make me sick. I'm like, why? And then I had an engineering manager and he said, Mike, here's the difference. Here's what you need to do. And I looked at it and I went, wow, changes everything. So, focus on both. Get deep technical knowledge. You can't be a strong engineer long-term without kind of developing that kind of knowledge that Sandeep has. If you want to improve your engineering career, you can do it both technically. You can also do it on the soft skills communication side. Both work. In architecture, it's not an option. You need to be deeply communicative. You need to be a deep business leader, super emotionally intelligent. I mean, I remember one year, I know this is going to sound crazy. I had 16 really good engineers working for me, and they were paid by the company. That year, I spent $100,000 on lunches and dinners, literally taking my engineers out, asking them what they needed, finding out where they wanted to be in 5 years, getting them promoted when they were done the project, dealing with the challenges they had from the customer. I spent half of my time literally working out problems for my team. And because of that, my team delivered excellence. But these are the skills, architects, engineering, they're very valued, and you can't do it without either side. But I don't feel like it's possible to be good at both at the same time. Because look at the depth that Sandeep has, and look at the amount of time it took to develop it. Architecture knowledge, I've been working in architecture for 30 years. I didn't learn it overnight. And you know what I learned in the first year? I thought I knew what I was doing. By the 10th year, it was like, okay, wow, this stuff's complicated. And so learning how to learn is your friend. So I'll bring it back to Sandeep. But when I go back to Sandeep, I want to talk about, what is experience training people? How long does it take to get a baseline knowledge? I mean, how many hours? Like for my architects, I spend well over 250 hours in our training program. And I mean, well over 250 hours. But what goes into your DevOps training, Sandeep?
It's kind of similar. So what I do, I start from the very basics knowledge, like what exactly is having cloud knowledge is also required as a DevOps engineer, because you don't know how to configure the things in the cloud, it will be a problem. So I start with the basic cloud knowledge. Then I show them how the normal application flow works. So each are like 1 or 2 hour classes. For suppose it's a big company paying me well, for them they have paying, since I have to do them on a daily training basis 1 hour. But when I'm doing for free, I have to make like when I'm not working on Saturday, Sundays, so 2 to 3 hours or maybe 1 hour based on the kind of things I'm teaching them. And it goes for 3 months, 6 months based on the kind of knowledge they seek. If they need the basic knowledge, I think it's 3 months enough to start and getting started. They can keep learning after that. But if they want to know deep knowledge on that, at least 6 months is required. So because I give them the gap, so they can experiment themselves and they can come to me with questions, because if they don't have any questions, that means they didn't try it yet.
You're right.
If I gonna try something, I'll have 1,000 questions in my mind. Like, how this happens? Why this happens? Why I'm going to use this tool? Why not? Suppose many questions. Many people ask me, why use Terraform? Why not use the Ansible? They do similar kind of job. I mean, look, their purpose is completely different. You use Terraform for the infrastructure automation. You write infrastructure code. You use Terraform for Ansible. You write to update the configuration, generating new configuration, more of the configuration management. Both can do the same thing, but you have to see what's more comfortable, what's community have adapted. Because if you're going to use a tool that no one's supporting, how you're going to grow with that tool? So think about that way. So similar way, when I teach people, I ask them what you want to be. Like, you want to start your career and do internship. This is your 2-3 months training. Go through it. Well, definitely you'll get a job. Now, what you want to do, suppose the experienced kind of engineer who is working with DevOps engineer, but he don't know what exactly he's doing. Like, more than I think 90 to 100 kind of person came. Sandeep, I'm a DevOps engineer, but I don't know what to do. I mean, people giving me jobs and they want me something, but I don't know how to get it done. So in that case, my goal will be teach them what exactly DevOps is, how can that, what they're doing most of the thing manually, and it's taking them tremendous time. And I say, look, this job you can done within 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Why are you spending days and hours on that? So that is the thing, giving them the right path and then just touching the base with them, and then they will come to me with the question. I will answer them and I will teach them the new thing. So that's how I program all that. For suppose someone want to get into internship, I give them the knowledge, the basic knowledge. So basic cloud application development, entire life cycle, basic knowledge, how the code get stored in the Git, how then it can be containerized in Dockerized, like it can be Dockerized or containerized using Docker. Then how can you deploy in different options? Like you can deploy application in simply a computer, but that not going to serve a purpose. I mean, what the serve, it will purpose will serve if you run in a computer. You have to run in a server so that the global users can access the application, the APIs. Then learn about the basic API development. I know you're not going to develop the APIs, but know them. If suppose you're getting error 506, 504 or 400, if you don't know the meaning, how can you debug that? So even while working with multiple softwares, even the DevOps specific tools also, there are some kind of error codes. You have to understand debugging the things, because what you do, that is a different thing. But in the production, in the actual field, you see the problems. You are the problem solver, not a problem creator itself. So you have to understand how to develop the solution itself. So that's what I try to teach in my sessions. And then when people who actually follow things and come back to me, Sandeep, I have got a job, I'm doing great. It's the satisfaction I need, not anything else. That is what everyone we seek for. The thing we develop, the plan we develop, the courses I do for them, and they're doing good, that's what we like want to see in our life. So that's what happens. They have to follow exactly their path. So like if suppose someone come to me and says, Sandeep, I want to become a cloud architect and I want to learn DevOps, I have the same question. Like, if you want to become the cloud architect, then why are you learning DevOps? Learn about the more of the cloud services. Maybe if you want to become like choose which cloud you want to target, because there are multiple cloud. Okay, if you want to become multi-cloud engineer, that's also fine. But learn about multiple cloud. Learn about how you can utilize the combination of the services, because it's not about single, like you told me, S3 single like EC2. It's combination of the multiple services for the application to be deployed in EC2, for the database to be stored in the RDS, the object or the files that you generate your application that may be stored in the S3. So this is a combination of multiple things, not a single service. That way I try to teach in the classes as well.
Excellent, Sandeep. Now, I'm going to do two things. One is I'm going to put a link to a completely free architecture class. Anybody all over the world is welcome. You'll have to experience the life of a cloud architect. You will ask me a whole bunch of questions. I will then describe my business goals, legal challenges, regulatory environments, pain points, and then you will design the architecture and architecturally, meaning you'll map out compute, you'll map out storage, you'll map out your network, you'll map out it all. And then from there, we'll build it on at least 2 cloud providers, because there's almost no such thing as pure cloud anymore. There's almost no such thing. So everything is hybrid cloud, multi-cloud. It used to be all this great cloud native, and I love cloud native. What happened is one of the cloud providers kicked a business that was using cloud native services out of their cloud and to put them out of business. So now when I consult with CEOs, they're like, wait, lift and shift, easy on, easy off, because it's all driven by the business. But you know how Sandeep said 3 months, 6 months? Let me tell you how we do things, because we're doing the same thing, just we're approaching it in different perspectives. When I take a cloud architect, I have a 16-week program. And like Sandeep said, which is why I'm here with him, he said, you can't learn without asking questions. So what I do is twice per week in our live training, and Chris from my team can post a link to it and a coupon code and our organization's phone number if he wants. But what we do is we have live architecture training twice a week where people ask questions. Because if you're not asking questions, you're not learning. You can't learn from a pure video course. It's not training. It's just not. You've got to ask questions. So we have live training twice per week. And then we've got videos that people do during the week. And of course, they do the videos, there's homework assignments, and they submit them for feedback via Slack. Our students even build the cloud. So, you know, when he's talking about depth, I want you to understand depth. At the architecture level, it's no big deal if I know what is S3, what is EC2. Why? What happens when I have to use Azure? What happens when I use GCP? What happens with the Cisco cloud, the Dell cloud, or OpenStack Ansible, or any of these things? So, you know, I teach the people the generic, and from there you add the modules, and this is how you do all architecture design. So I tell people it takes 4 months or 250 hours if they're experienced in tech for me to move them over to an architect, and we're very successful. Why do I do it? This morning, one of my students, Ian, said, guess what, Mike? I got a job. And, you know, we run our course, and it's, you know, it's not the cheapest course in the world. We pretty much charge our cost plus a little bit, which is the average salary of a cloud architect for a day, because we're running servers, we're running live classes. We don't hire customer service reps. We hire MBA data scientists to deal with our customers. Why do we do this? Because we want to know that if someone asks a question, they get an answer. So we say 4 months for tech background, whereas 6 to 8 months if nobody's never worked in tech before. And why do we do this? Because we want to see people get hired. I'm from a developing nation, or at least my family is, and Deep's there. He knows what it's like. I know what it's like to not always be able to pay for training. It's terrible. When you want to go somewhere and you've got to go to your family and ask for money and your friends, and then you've got debt on your head, which personally for me, that makes me nervous. I'm uncomfortable with it. So that's why I've created this free training. Now, I can't get people to the level I'd like with the free training. I can still get them hired. I can still get them basic introductory jobs. And I love that, but I love the human side of it. So the same way Sandeep's talking about answering questions, that's why we're talking about this. And that's why I'm so happy to have him here. He's doing this because he likes to see people get hired. If you ask my team, why am I doing this? Because I like to get hired. I could stay at Cisco, I could go to any organization and not have to work so hard, but it's not work for me. Mark Twain, the author, said, make your vacation your vocation, and you'll never work a day in your life. And that's why I'm doing it. That's why Sandeep's running his YouTube channel. I can tell you, I run a YouTube channel. It takes 10 hours or more to make a good YouTube video. This is not something that he does in his hobby. He's not sitting on his phone. He's not there, okay, I'm a YouTuber. No, there are YouTubers that do that, but not Sandeep. His message is methodical and decent and strong. And I'll probably do one of these with Sandeep on his channel to help his channel as well. I like having him on my channel. I think it's really good for you all to build a team of people that you like to find, people that understand your goals. So before I go back to Sandeep, I released a video today, which Chris from my team will post a link to. And the reason I released this video is this is a very serious topic. Every day I go to LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter and someone says, I want a cloud job. What certification should I get? Now, here's why this is so problematic. Instantly, within 5 minutes, it's like Reddit. You get thousands of responses. You should study Sysops. You should study DevOps, study Cisco, study CompTIA, study security, study this. And why is this so problematic? No one asked the person, what is your gold job? No one asked the person, what is your background? All they really did when we start talking about these kind of things is looked at it from a perspective and said, this is what I do. Now, if you don't know what the person's career is, you definitely can't advise them. So I produced a video on that about how to ask for advice. People ask me every day. I get hundreds of LinkedIn messages and emails, and that's okay. But, you know, what you're trying to say is, I guess what I'm trying to say is go out there and get it from sources. Regarding analysis, you know, architects do not do DevOps, not at all. Never, 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 never. I know hundreds of architects working at all the cloud providers. I placed some of them there. We're talking distinguished architects, principal architects. They don't code. Architects don't code and they don't do DevOps. Now, familiarity with the DevOps process? Sure. Absolutely critical, but we don't do DevOps, and DevOps people don't do architecture. And when people try to be a jack of all trades, what they become is a master of none. And I've seen when engineers design architectures, and I've also seen when architects try and do engineering work. And let me tell you, neither is good. I mean, for example, when PC people do networking, it's not good. But you know, of course, how would it be? What if a doctor tried to fix your car? I wouldn't expect that to work so well either. So get focused, be great. The question is, what is your YouTube channel, Sandeep? So feel free to pop that in the chat, or we'll pop that. I'll have Chris pop that in the chat box. It's always important to share information and share resources because, you know, I think it's really great what you're doing. So
Thank you.
That's why we're doing this. Someone said, will we collaborate on things? I'm happy to collaborate with Sandeep on anything he wants.
We'll definitely do. Yeah, definitely do.
We're similar philosophically. We both want people to get hired. We both want to help people build their careers. I do a tremendous amount of work in India, Africa, and the developing world, a tremendous amount of work. And let me tell you, I love being there. And, you know, I love what Sandeep's doing, helping people along the way. So Sandeep described, you know, how much fun it is when one of your people tells you, I got hired because I get this email every day or call every day. And to me, it's like a dream come true. What's it like on your side?
Exactly the point. Like one morning, just example, one morning I just wake up. I had some work. I was like a late night and I woke up also late. And I was like in a very bad mood, to be honest. See, I have to work late night. And the moment I open my LinkedIn profile and I go to messaging, two message, sir, I got job because of your real life training. And I'm very happy to let you know. If we get any opportunity to meet you, I will definitely meet you. So the person got the offer, a very good offer, like very good salary offer and a very good company. And he's so like happy to like getting a first job is so big deal for people. Like we, when we get a job, getting a first job was non-tech, but getting that was a big deal to us. Similarly, to anyone, getting a first job is to be. And if you know that the person got job because the content you put on the open for everyone, that's brings a new level of joy. Okay, whenever I upload a video, I don't think people will like it or everyone like it. I know if only one single person find it useful, that can help them in their day-to-day job, getting a job in an interview. That's what it takes the entire world around that. So one person get useful, that's enough for me. That is the path we should go for.
You know, that's the best way I can describe it. You know, like today's video that I released, here's the way YouTube people do it. They research before they record. First, they search keywords. Okay, what keywords are out there? Okay, this keyword is good because it's got enough search volume and there's no competition. Here's how I rank. And that's what people do every day. When I made a video this morning, how to get advice on LinkedIn, I didn't search for ranks. Why did I do it? I saw it needed to be done in the community. And if that just helps one person not spend a year of their life going down the wrong direction, it's good. Why am I so focused? I'm like Mr. Focused on get to your goal and get to you fast. Look, I'm a business executive. I'm an architect. As an architect, here's what I think about. How do we improve things? I've been an enterprise architect, a cloud architect, a network architect. It's all about designing things. I've even been a business architect when I was at Cisco in their strategy consulting team. What is that? Improving processes, efficiency. So it's all there. So I love it. When people tell you they get hired, wow, this is great. So Sandeep, here's where I think we should try and drive the conversation. Somebody asked, how do I go from DevOps engineer to architect? I'm going to answer that. And then, I want you to go from scratch. I want you to basically say, if I had no background, for example, in tech, what would I need to learn first? What would my home lab look like? Do I set up a server? Do I set up, lots of containers and virtualizations? And I'm going to tell you what an architect lab looks like first. So I'm going to discuss it from the architecture piece first. And then I'm going to have you go down the DevOps piece because, these are super simple. But I get asked the two questions. One is, how do I go from tech to architecture? That's the most common thing. And the other is, how do I go from nothing to architect? And we do both. And you know what? Certified, non-certified, we don't care. You know why I don't care? After I interview the certified people, it's like, okay, I got to start at 0-1 anyway. So here's the thing. So for people that are in engineering, and by the way, I have lots of respect for engineering, and I was one. And guess what? Architects like me will build nothing without an engineer. I'm going to say this again. It doesn't matter how good my design is. If there's not someone that can build it, it's no good. I'm also going to say the contrapositive, which is if you design the best design in the world and you can build it, but you can't sell it to the customer, it will never be built. So you can't do one without the other. You need that symbiotic sort of relationship. So if somebody goes from a tech career to architecture, it's a process. Why is it a process? It is a very different skill. Let's say you're a super smart DevOps engineer. Lots of them. I've met an incredible number of them, and they blow me away with their intelligence. And they want to be an architect. As an engineer, they're all process. They're very close to it. They're very detail oriented. But it's not really business related. There's no ROI modeling. Very limited presentations, almost no time at the C-level executive level. It is smart, deep engineering work. By comparison, when I take someone from this background, or network engineer, DevOps engineer, it really doesn't matter, data center engineer, storage engineer, really good, smart people. And they want to do architecture, it's different. Now I got to teach them end-to-end system design. Where as an engineer, for example, I focus on one thing. When I was an engineer, I focused on BGP for 10,000 hours. And then after this, James Foreman, Sandeep will go tell you how to go from developer to DevOps, which is the next question, which we were planning on. So we got you there. So what do I do? The first part of what I do when I take engineers is we have to change the communication style. Why do I start communication styles first? It drives my engineering students nuts. But why do I do it first? Here's the reason. The communication skills to be an architect take the longest time to develop. I will tell you, I spent, or the company spent with me, well over $250,000 to develop these skills. That's exactly how much it took for me to learn these executive skills. Now I teach this to my students and I do it at a low cost, but these skills are that critical. So you need to know how to present as an architect. You need to know how to do information gathering. You must be very empathetic. Because, when you walk in this environment and they have outages because somebody did something ridiculous, You can't be judgmental about it. You've got to be able to ask open-ended questions and have people trust you enough to give it to you. And then you've got to lead the team that's going to build it at the customer site as well as your team. So that's the business, that's the communication skills. Now, nobody buys technology because it's cool, except for maybe Sandeep and me. In his house, he's probably got a dozen computers. I've got a 16-core Mac Pro with 192 gigs of RAM and 2 GPUs that I use in my daily workspace. I've got another room that's filled with 24-core servers with 120 gigs of RAM. And I've got a $15,000 firewall at the edge of my network, an IDS/IPS system, and managed switches throughout my home. This is not normal. I'm a geek. But let's be fair. Companies don't buy stuff because they like it. That's for people like Sandeep and me. They buy it to solve a business problem. So I have to teach the business problem, and I have to teach ROI modeling. What is ROI modeling? I need to go, what is the expected value of the solution, and what benefit does that provide to the customer? For example, if a project costs $100 million, which is not uncommon, I've worked on $1 billion plus architectures and designed them in my career, but let's say it's just $100 million for a big enterprise. If it gives $50 million of value to the customer, it's a bad project. It's a horrible project because the value is less than the cost. Now, if I can figure out the customer's business plans and generate a solution that generates $500 million in value or $500 million, and it only costs them $100 million, I made money for the customer. I am a partner for the customer. I am an executive that works with the customer. So here, when you're dealing with architects, you must have that end-to-end knowledge and that business acumen. So now we covered the business skills, the communication skills. Now it's the end-to-end design skills. What is the cloud? Let's be fair. Everybody's got all these cool terms from the cloud. I'm going to tell you what it is right now. It's just a network and a data set that's been virtualized. The first cloud I worked with 25 years ago was called Frame Relay. And I was connecting all these, 56K lease lines between New York and Delhi. And it was $5,000 a month, but that was the first Frame Relay link. And then after that, it was ATM. After that, my team worked on developing something called VPLS, which was a network cloud over an MPLS cloud. Then we started consulting to the cloud provider. So it's a network and a data center, which means if you want to be an architect, you must know the network and you must know for the data center, So what technologies do you need to know network-wise? IP addressing, NAT, quality of service, VLANs, 802.1q tagging, IPsec, NAT, and NAT is not just to connect to the internet, but all the uses of NAT, route filtering, traffic engineering, BGP, not just the protocol, but how to traffic engineer the protocol. Then we need to know firewalls, we need to know IDS, IPS systems. After the IPS, IDS systems, what we need to look about packet filtering, we need to know servers, server virtualization, containers, storage, all these kind of things are absolutely critical. And let alone knowledge of how applications work. So that's the process to go from engineer to architect, because it's a completely different skill set. So it's taking those deep skills and going, depth of how to do one thing to overall knowing a lot about how the stuff works together. And it's the integration and the working together. That's the architecture component, how it works together. So how would you take someone from another career and turn them into a DevOps person?
Okay. So just for example, as a cloud architect, give us a system design. And they say, look, this system look like, and our application should be deployed in this system, and it should deploy flawlessly. We want the monitoring logs, and we want to make sure if something deviation happen from our architecture, we want to get notified. So all monitoring system, all threat detection system, everything should be in place. Now that technical description of that design to realize like actual remote object in the servers or in the cloud, that a DevOps engineer have to make. They have to make things happen. From high level look or view, the architects give us a system design, and making the relation, this entire process, all the DevOps engineer do. So now suppose a DevOps, like a developer or any tech person coming, maybe a system engineer or a system administrator, they want to become a DevOps engineer. Now they know a bit about the system development or system lifecycle, which is very good, because to give a solution for a particular application, because most of the cases a DevOps engineer is application specific. So they are in the charge of developing, like deploying application and make sure the entire flow works that way. So suppose I have a notice application, or maybe any Python application, I have to make sure that application should go to the production policy. Now, look at that part. Here, the code coming. If I don't know anything about the code, I don't know the or how the testing works, I cannot make sure the test happening fine. So as a DevOps engineer, first communication point will be the developer. So if you're a developer, you already know like what question to ask, like what is the Node.js version, what is the or maybe the Python version, whatever binary they're using, that version. What can it be upgradable, because that brings the performance. Can it be like security tested, or there be any code reviewing tool? Apply that while in the like pushing the code. If something is a deviation from the standard, they should get notified, that will rectify. So all these things a DevOps engineer should know, and you have to communicate with the developers. So if you're a developer, you know what question or right question to ask. If you're a system engineer, you also know this kind of question to ask. So that's a good point. You're already in a halfway, because you are in the depth part. Now think about the operation perspective. As an operation perspective, we want to make sure the code that go to production should be less issued, or we know bugs will happen. That's no one can guarantee there will be no application in the world is bug free. Even in the bigger application also face bugs and go down sometime. What is the strategy if something goes down? How can you there should be some fault tolerance, should be some high availability, should be some disaster recovery. Now as a DevOps engineer, you have to plan, like maybe the system, the architect giving the design. Now making that implementation happen also is a part of the DevOps job. So you know the DevOps part. Now think about the recovery part. If something happened, how application should recover, and have the architecture in place. Now, suppose any disaster happen, your database could update. You should have the backup in place, and you should have created from that new kind of database engine from that backup, and make the recovery. Now, if you're thinking about DevOps, the developer perspective, more manual. Now, if you think of the DevOps engineer perspective, this has to be automated, because maybe you are sleeping and that time servers go down, something going down, there has to be recovery. So you have to make sure everything is automated as much as possible, because not everything is possible to automate, but make sure something can obviously be automated, make that automated. So that part is also DevOps engineer job. So from the developer's code to the ultimate production application, there are multiple processes. So first the code check and code build, then code review, like processing, then maybe to staging environment, then making sure it, the QA engineer approving it, that going to the production. If anything happens, there should be like a server program happens. What server? Maybe it's due to some code or something, there is a infinite loop going on. I'm just giving a real life example. There is an infinite loop going on, and the product, that CPU usage going more than 80%. A DevOps engineer should have placed some kind of alerts or kind of monitoring that immediately would have notified to the entire, maybe the system engineer teams who are in charge of handling the system, like managing the system, and again the engineer whose code recently got pushed, or maybe in which module the error is happening. So that all part of the DevOps engineer job. So suppose now the point, if I'm a developer, what the things to be learned. Now in this process, I have shown, like I just discussed about the flow where putting all the system, automated system, like disaster recovery system, like automated code deployment and monitoring system. That skill you need to learn. So that are the skills you have to learn while want to become a DevOps engineer. What addition to that, a DevOps engineer, of course, the role in the beginning it's a talk that infrastructure should be in place. Now, yes, infrastructure can be done by manually using if you go to any cloud and create all the resources manually, fine. But a good or a best, you can say better DevOps engineer, what they should do, they will write everything as a code. Now, come again the code part. If you're a developer or coming from a system engineer background, and think about if you know about the logics, the procedure of coding, to you, the Terraform or Ansible code will be so much simpler, because in the Terraform or in the you can say any tools, there are huge usage of the scripting happening. And what it looks like, mode of cases, the JSON-like statement. So if you're a developer, you already know JSON. Now just learn about what the new tools you're going to use is, what formatting or language they're following. Simply treat as a new language and simply learn it, and then try to deploy it and do practicing. So practicing what you've learned is also very important, because most of the cases what happen, people just learn tools and they do not practice, and when the client asks to do, they fail to do it, and that's a loss. So you have to make sure not just learn, you have to apply. Don't apply to production directly, but try to apply in your project. Could be something like think as simple as your own profile, maybe your own resume or similar to that, and think about then doing for the client, and think you must have a rollback mechanism. So we call it code deploy. Now code deploy, but what, like similar kind of tools are there in the Jenkins or the open source alternative also. You have to make it, if something goes wrong, you should have, like, suppose you deployed an application for any reason, there's a problem happen, and that error giving you like 500 error or something, say some 400 errors, anything error giving, an application not running, it's giving error. So there should be some health check or status check. So you have to know what tools to use for the health check, and then that should be in place. If something happens, there should be a rollback mechanism. So this kind of basic skill that a developer or any person coming to DevOps engineer role should have. Again, just as a summarization part, you have to learn the CI/CD process. Of course, it's it's related application. So most of the DevOps engineer job is application specific. So you have to make sure what application running on that getting deployed to production flawlessly, and whatever tools you need to like make that happen, you have to learn it. And company to company, the tools also get differ. If I say something, Terraform is a must, but if that company using CloudFormation as a mandate, what you can do? You have to learn the tool and deploy it. So don't focus on tools. Focus on the methods of happening. It's again, it's a category of infrastructure as a code. So if you know the concept, if you know how it happened, you can also learn the new thing, new tool, and you can do it. Because after 5 years, you can see maybe Terraform gone, maybe Ansible gone, maybe the CloudFormation gone, maybe some excellent tool came, which is more super easy and more effective. We have to move to that, because entire things, I think Mike also agreed that previously, like 5-10 years, what you have used to, what tools have used, now it's entirely changed. If something new came in that place, and that make our life better. So you have to, of course, think about or use about the tools. I mean, use tools that can make your life better, make your workload lower, because that's what we go to manage services. Why? Because we don't want to manage all the services ourselves. We don't want a dedicated developer to manage a database, because maybe the database cost is only $1,000 per month, but the developer managing that is $4,000. So what's the point? You can have a like managed instance, maybe $200, $300, $500 extra, but you don't need the extra work, or you don't need to yourself to be in front of the system all the time to manage that. So this kind of skills that a DevOps engineer should have. Not, you cannot learn all at once, but learn slowly, one by one. And once you see that, so most of the cases, how to even know which kind of skill you should go, because there are a lot of skills. This company asking for that, this company, no, don't go for that. Make a focus target. If you want to go in a company, say Google, maybe AWS, maybe Azure, maybe Accenture, any company, you can take any name. Think about what tools they're using, maybe what project you're targeting, what tools they're using. Maybe just simple look in the LinkedIn or any places, look what skills the developer have. So that means that skill the developer developed while working in this particular application or in this firm. Learn that thing. That will help you to get job, and that will, like, that is the way you should develop your skill set. Not just all entire wallet to offer. Instead, focus on what matters. That's what important.
Perfect. And then there's a couple of questions that I want to get to relatively quickly, but perfect. The first question that I see here is there a job for Kubernetes people outside of DevOps? Yes, lots of them. Here's the thing. Kubernetes are containers. Containers are the basis of compute. There are Kubernetes jobs in a data center. There are Kubernetes jobs in the cloud. DevOps is just one of the many things. DevOps might be 5% of all the Kubernetes work. The other 95% is for compute. So don't ever limit your career. The reason we architects are end-to-end system design is we're focused on all the stuff that's used everywhere. Where I don't know enough about the DevOps because I'm not a DevOps professional. I don't focus my whole day there. I focus on end-to-end. But that's why we work with people that are experts. But Kubernetes jobs everywhere, don't worry about it, is not related to DevOps. DevOps is a use case of Kubernetes. Just like CI/CD is part of DevOps, but it is not DevOps. Just like machine learning is not data science. It's a tool used by data scientists. So lots of jobs there. Let me get to some of these questions for you. To people that are asking about, they're in school and they wanted to go to the cloud, do they focus on front end, back end? The first question I have for you is, what do you like? What do you like will determine what you should do. If you do not like what you do, if you are not passionate about what you do, you will not be great at it. For example, you have to be great at something to really escalate your career. And I interview 1,000 people every 6 weeks. And let me tell you, when I interview 1,000 people every 6 weeks, it's hard to find someone that's hireable because of the depth that you need to know for that career. It is hard. I've interviewed 5,000 people in my career. I've spoken to hundreds, if not thousands, of hiring managers and hundreds of recruiters. I started my career by asking 50 recruiters, what is the hiring manager's dream? That's how I started my system 20-some years ago. I asked, and they told me. I aggregated the information, we ran a statistical analysis. We were at a 95% confidence interval of what we know what hiring managers work. And I've done this my entire life. So lots of jobs. When it comes to jobs now, I think you need to figure out what you like. For example, are you like me, where you don't like sitting behind the computer and you like getting out there in front of the customer, presenting, talking? If you like that, that's an architect role. If you like sitting behind the computer all day long, that's an engineering role. Again, equally valuable. Now, career-wise, they're different. Engineers can go from engineer to senior engineer to principal engineer, and in some cases, distinguished engineer. But that pathway, and Sri, I'll get to your question next, that pathway is really designed for the engineering workflow. The customer-facing side is the same path, but architects like me, they go from architect to senior architect to principal architect to distinguished architect, and we move into like enterprise architectures, and we do the such. So that kind of gives you the feel for what we're kind of doing. So they are different skills, but you gotta like it. I will tell you, when it comes to building your career, happiness matters first. But when it comes to actual salaries, the closer you are to the customer, the more you will be paid. This was a very painful point that I learned early in my career. I was a Cisco certified internet expert. I was one of the world's best known BGP authorities in the world. And I was an engineer, and I had rock solid, deep, propeller head hats and Coke bottle thick glasses. I remember one time being with Reliance Telco on a call with 20 IIT graduates, and each one was a specialist on something, and they wanted to know how we could possibly redesign the network to modernize India 20 years ago. I mean, those are the kind of things I did as an engineer. What did I do to move to an architect? I got more business oriented, and I started dressing better. I bought a new grade of suits. I got an MBA. I did an executive presence training. That's how I built my career. Both are good. Both are good. They're just different. So I don't want anybody to think they're Gaurav. How do you get to an architecture role? I can tell you that, Gaurav, I'm answering some questions. There's a couple of DevOps questions that I'm going to send back to Sandeep in a minute. How do you get to an architecture role? I'll tell you what we do. And I'll tell you how you could do it on your own, because I want you to know what we do is as following. We train people live twice per week, and we make them design systems. The students today, and if anybody wants to take a free sample class today, send an email to admin@gocloudcareers.net while you're on the call. We have a live class with our students in 47 or 37 minutes. And if you want to send something to my COO at admin@gocloudcareers, he will send you a Zoom invite to today's call if you want to experience it. But we do live architecture training twice per week with our students. And then we teach the network, the data center, servers, containers, firewalls, network systems, IDS, IPS systems. I mean, file storage, object storage, block storage, and it's nowhere close to enough to say, hey, object storage is S3. That doesn't even begin to have the conversation. You need to be having a 12-hour conversation with someone about their storage as an architect. So that's the kind of way we train it. And then we train executive presence, executive communication, ROI modeling, how to communicate to the different level executives, how to communicate to the different personality types, how to read the body language, for an example, of the executives to know when to tune your message, change your message, or stop speaking. That's just part of it. So Gaurav, we spend 250 hours minimum with our students, because that's what it takes. So I hope I answered your question there. That's why we created a training program, certification. Look, you can have all the certifications you want on my channel. It's free. We do the Certified Solution Architect Associate for free. We do an architecture-based Certified Solution Architect Professional for free. We did an AWS Advanced Networking, and I even taught BGP in there, making it much different than AWS Advanced Networking, and it's completely free. And next week, You know what we're going to do? We are going to have a fun free network thing where we're going to design a network. We're going to talk about BGP policy, traffic engineer, some things. And I invite you all, my students and Deep students, for free. And when he does a good DevOps thing, I'm happy to invite my students to it as well, because information sharing is how we build a better world. So, but that's how we typically do it. Let me go through some of these questions. Because there was a couple one that I wanted to make sure. So this one I'm going to answer. I don't even need to go to Sandeep on this one. I know DevOps engineers who don't know how to code at all of Java. You know, they just know SAS. Are they going to be successful? No, they're not going to be successful long term. You can't be a software related person without knowing it. You can get a job. You can be very mediocre at that job until the next layoff occurs, and these are going to be the people that get laid off. I'm sorry to say that. What organizations do, what hiring managers do in big organizations is they stack rank their employees every year. We're forced to do it. Who is the best? They get the biggest bonus. Who are the core team? They get an average bonus. Who are the worst on your team? And unfortunately, what do? We keep them around in what's called the layoff pool. And when we're forced to do a layoff, like some companies, high performance companies mandate you lay off the bottom 5% every year, that's what's there. So when you want a good career, it's not enough to be good. It's not enough to be great. You should try to be the best at everything you do. Better, faster, cheaper. And when you do this, there's no way that no one or anything that can stop you. Regarding Padma asked a question, you completed both professional certificate, AWS Solutions Architect Associate, and you're having a hard time. There's a reason for that. These certifications cover nothing related to architecture. They cover the name of a service and how to configure it. Architecture is design. There is no design and certification training. You can watch the videos on our channel. There's a lot of free content, but that's why we have our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. Chris from my team will do the following. He will put a link to that course. He will put a coupon code for 20% off. And I am going to be crazy enough to actually put our office's phone number here. And if any of you guys have any questions, feel free to call our office. So that shows you exactly how committed we are. And I know the number of people that reach out to Sandeep on a daily basis. I've seen it. I respect it in more ways than you can count. So let's go down. James, you've been a developer for 20 years. Very nice change of pace. Excellent. Thank you. Sherry, I know what it's like to be an advisor. I've worked in some days in more countries than you can actually think about. When I was at Cisco, my day would be, hey, go to DC on Monday, then fly to San Jose to give another presentation on Monday, then fly to England, give a presentation, then go to Dubai, then stop in Bangalore, then go back to Dubai, then go to Sydney, then go back to Dubai, then go to Hong Kong. So there's lots of languages. That's just part of the process. Languages and accents. At some point, you don't even recognize them. When people get on my calls now, because I've traveled so much, I'm like, you're from Nigeria. You're Cameroonian. You're Jamaican. You're from Bangalore. You're from Delhi. You're Punjabi. And that's just what happens. It's just going to be part of your life when you work internationally. There's no such thing as your own time zone anymore. There's no such thing as the accent. We all have accents. My students say, is an accent a problem? No. Everybody has an accent. I have an accent. When I speak to Sandeep, he's going to think Mike has an American accent. When I hear him speak, okay, he's got an Indian accent. Well,
exactly.
Everybody has an accent.
Exactly. And accent, even one of my videos said, Sandeep, you have Indian accent. I mean, of course I'm Indian. So I will have an Indian accent. What do you expect?
Exactly. So these are absolutely essential skills. When I get a new student and they can't figure out the time zone, doesn't happen often, but every once in a while, somebody doesn't get the time zone. Okay, my first conversation is, guess what? We're all entitled to miss this once. But your new life is going to be, you don't even know which time zone you're in. When you become a senior enough architect or a senior enough DevOps engineer, you're going to be on calls with Singapore and calls with New York, all in the same day. And, I typically in the morning, for example, doing architecture work, have a couple of calls in India. Then after India, Europe and Africa. And then after that, then it's my American students. Then it's my American students on the West Coast. And then at night, around 10 o'clock at night, when the Indian population is waking up, that's who I start talking to again. and sometimes the Chinese population. So the person milked about accents, guess what? It's going to be there. Anna Kit asked the question, how do you deal with different technology environments? Here's the thing, and I'll answer it. I'm going to let Sandeep answer it next. How do I deal with different tech? I learn how the tech works. I know every part of what's actually going on under the hood. I don't learn OpenStack. I don't learn Ansible. I don't learn AWS. I mean, I do, but my point is I focus on the cloud. I have my students build a cloud. Why do I have my students build the cloud? It's all the same thing. A cloud is a network and a data center that's been virtualized. How do you virtualize it? You install a control plane. What is the control plane? The control plane is the software that manages and orchestrates everything and make it work together. The data plane, for example, which you then configure, is your servers, your storage. Want to be great at the cloud? Build a cloud. I mean it. Build a cloud. That's how you learn the cloud. So I'm going to have Sandeep go back and answer the opposite side of this. But don't be afraid to do stuff off the cloud. Don't be afraid to learn how it works. Don't be afraid to do these things on a Linux system. Learn how to do it the hard way. Sandeep can do it off the cloud. He knows how to do it the hard way. And then when it goes to the cloud, it becomes so easy.
Just example. See, people, I don't know if you people know about this device or not. This called a Raspberry Pi. So you don't have to work on the cloud directly. Make sure what you're going to do. Ultimately, it's a Linux system. You just told me, like in cloud, it's Linux and networking. So why not just connect this Raspberry Pi with your network and try to run some, like say Ubuntu or say any Unix OS, and first deploy in this small box and make sure it works. You have the confidence, then go to cloud exact same way. Now that service could be different, the name could be different, but underlying the architecture is same. The things we're going to do is same. That's the point.
So completely agree. I've got a collection of 24 core Xeon servers in my house, like a lot of them. And in my last, 20 years of coaching, and I'll tell you why I created the experience program, just because of this, which is in my 20 years of coaching, I always said, you want to learn? Buy a server. When I was training Cisco network people, I had them buy a server. We set up on the server. We did lots of things. We set up these big routed and switches environments on these servers. Why did I do it? Because they could use it. What do I tell my American students? Buy yourself a server with a minimum of 16 cores, 128 gigs of RAM, and 3 SSD drives in a RAID 0. We can use RAID 0 because we're not concerned about losing data. It's a lab server. Or add an NVMe drive, or better yet, a couple of NVMe drives in a RAID 0 configuration. So you've got speed. Now here, build everything. Have something that you set up as a DevOps box. Have something that you set up as a network box. Build a cloud, and we'll use 8 cores and 64 gigs of RAM and build a cloud. Configure some things on your cloud. Set up your Active Directory. And guess what? After you've set up Active Directory in your lab, connect your cloud to it that you built. Then connect your cloud to 3 other clouds and use federated identity. This is how you become an expert. It's not going to be on the cloud. Anybody can configure the management console. Anybody can configure the CLI. Personally, when I make my videos, I use my best friend's 8-year-old daughter. She is the cutest thing. She's got these little pigtails and she clicks, and she says easy too. And I love watching her do that because it's cute to me. But Sandeep's got the knowledge first, how to do it. So I want to ask that. And then there's a question that says, I've switched from development to DevOps and I'm miserable. And I want to answer that one next. But I want you to talk about this. How do you get your experience? It's not all on the cloud, right?
Exactly. So first thing is that learn the basic skills. Because if you don't know Linux and if you don't know the shell scripting, how you're going to do things in cloud? Because suppose you have any heavy application that need all the dependencies, all the binaries, even it's a Python or Go or Node, whatever programming it is. So you need to install the binaries first in the cloud. But if you don't know how to use the Linux system, how to know how to up the package list, or how to know, you don't know how to select the operating system itself, then how are you going to configure it? Because operating system basis, the commands are also different. So for Windows, it's going to be different command. For PowerShell, for like say CentOS, it will be different. For Red Hat, it will be different. For Ubuntu, it will be different. All different. So you have to first select your target cloud that is suitable for your application. So that is the basic. What is the Linux and the shell scripting? You learn that, all good. now you see you are interested in technology, maybe for better for the deployment related, or like say Jenkins, just example. You want to deploy your application or you want to do some integration testing via Jenkins. Then you have to install Jenkins. But to install Jenkins, you need to run the commands. So since you know the basic commands, now you need to know that I have to run some commands to install Jenkins. Then you read about the documentation of Jenkins to do kind of like after Jenkins install, you have to configure it. You configure the Jenkins, then again you read the documentation or maybe some videos in YouTube or the because I normally learn from the YouTubes and the articles in the Google. To be honest, I don't pay for it. I go there, I learn from it. I learn it. I just don't simply learn and then forget. No, I learn it. Doesn't matter how much time it takes, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Even after 10, 20 failure, it doesn't matter. Even if it's night, my wife sometimes, she complain much, but I just heard it and just ignored it. Then still I do. Once that gets done, I say, okay, done for the day. Because it's like you starting something, but if you don't completing, then what's the point of investing all that 10, 20 hours, right? So you try, you fail, you still learn from a mistake. Just Google about the mistake, you get the correct answer. And that's it. That's for the day. Then don't just learn and practice. You have to get clients for that. Because if you don't get paid for as a skill, you will not enjoy your skill set. Because, I mean, what's the point if you're not getting a job from that? So as soon as you know something, try to find a job, try to post something about that in the open internet anywhere possible, show some skills, because if you don't show your skill to the world, how the world will know your skill in the particular skill set? So you have to show to the world. Then when you get projects, perform the job, then now next to the target, because technology is ever changing. Now it's Jenkins or maybe Terraform or any tool. Next year it could be something else. Then you have to, but you have to look at the trend. So my technology part, I look at the trend, how it's going. In the go to Google, go anywhere. So DevOps tools. If you go to 2021, you will see all the list of the skills that people are many people are recommending. In the comments, you can see all people are using. Look at that. Then decide what tools should learn one by one. First the source code related tools, then the build related tools, then the deployment related tools, then monitoring related tools. So one by one, you cannot learn all at once, but if you can learn by one as the simple software development flow. Think that way. Your purpose, how it's happened, and to make that happen one by one, follow the path. That's how you should learn it, because otherwise it will be a problem.
I love that. It's a nice, interesting thing from Dr. Divine Bonfleet. Do I know Cameroon? I actually have 45 students in the Cameroon, and I can pick up the French side versus the accent versus the English side. Actually, between Nigeria and Cameroon, as well as Benin, we have well over 100 students that are incredibly impressive, doing incredibly things. We do a lot of free work with the Wind for Iron group that Banjika hosts. So I think Aqua is here, that's part of it. I constantly speak there. Actually, that was one of the 2 motivations that we had to give away all of our certification training for free, because of the work we had done there. That, as well as we looked at the AWS certification courses out there, and we were terrified. I mean, I was petrified. I looked, people are going to buy this and they're going to spend a year and they're not going to be even 1% hireable. So we had no choice but to produce the free training. But yes, we know that country very well. Not sure whether you're in Belgium right now or you made it to the US or the UK. Basang is here, he's Cameroonian. Aqua was here earlier today. So lots of people in that community that really do some amazing things. We actually have some students in Ghana as well. In fact, my first student was from Ghana, and he just became a senior cloud architect at IBM, and he's really excited about it. So welcome. But we've got a lot of students from that region of the world, and we're very impressed. We've got so many students from India and Africa, and they're just so motivated to get ahead. So we work with people all over the world, obviously the US, the UK, Canada, South America, Central America as well. But we see things in the we love cloud in the developing world for this reason. Look, you can get higher performance in the data center and the network than you can in the cloud. Don't let anybody mislead you and tell you the cloud is better or better. It's not. I can for $100 buy a hard drive with 600,000 IOPS. To get that on the cloud, it's going to cost me thousands of dollars per month. It's not that easy. I'm going to need multiple RAID 0 environments. The cloud is slower, but the cloud is agile. And why is there so much growth going on in the developing world of the cloud, which is super exciting to me? You don't have to buy anything. So when it comes to this, for example, the world I'm from, I meet with a customer. They buy $1 billion worth of stuff, And then they pay another couple hundred million to configure the stuff. With the cloud, there's nothing to buy. So it's all operational expenses. So we're typically dealing with capital expenses in the data center, which are hard to do versus operational expenses. Now, let's say you're coming from the developing world and you've got this business acumen, the ROI modeling skills that we're talking about, the CEO relevancy skills, and you can learn, you can evaluate the customer's business problem, develop a technology solution, and the technology solution, meaning the cost to pay for it each month, is less than the cost of the business value. This can modernize the developing world. This is so exciting and so can change lives for the better. This is why people like Sandeep and I do so much free training, because it can literally change the world. So I love the cloud. You just have to understand what is the network, what is the data center, and how do they work, because it's not what a cloud provider would do. Now, mostly what we're dealing with, at least in the US and the non-developing world, is lift and shift, not cloud native. Cloud native, for the most part, is things that organizations avoid. And why do organizations avoid it? What happened is a cloud provider kicked somebody off of the cloud, which bankrupted this business. So lift and shift, take virtual machines and go to the cloud. That's it. Take your storage, copy it over to the cloud. Cloud provider decides to raise your rate next year because you're no longer on the discount. Bye, cloud provider. I'm going to the next cloud provider. I'm going back to my data center. Imagine a cloud native environment with the kind of organizations I deal with. They have $1 billion technology infrastructure. Now, let's say they spend $200 million recoding all their applications to go to the cloud to save money. Let's say the cloud kicks them off. They're bankrupt. Or the cloud provider raises the rate 30%. Now they got to spend another $200 million to refactor their applications to get off of the cloud. So part of being an architect is knowing what's in the best interest of your customers. The manufacturers want to sell things that keep you addicted to them. They love serverless. Look, I love serverless too, for the right reasons. But as an architect, you need to know both, and you need to know how, where, and why. So I'm going to take this one and then Sandeep, if you've got some things to add, that's really great. The question is here, and as a career coach for almost 2 decades, I'm going to start with this. It's from Priyanka B, and it says, Mike and Sandeep, you switch your career from dev to DevOps. After your first week in DevOps, you're miserable. You miss coding. Do I need to give myself some more time, or is this an indication to go back? Well, a couple of things. I will tell you, when you take a new career, if you're not completely prepared for the new career, the first couple of weeks are going to be absolutely miserable. When I first started my networking career, and I was a CCNP, Cisco Certified Network Professional, Cisco Certified Design Professional, and Microsoft Certified Internet Engineer, I went to my first day. And here's what happened. People asked me to do stuff, and I was petrified. I went home and read almost 1,000 pages that night. I stayed up all night. Thankfully, because I practiced medicine first, I was a good reader. The next day, they asked me something I didn't know. So I bought a bunch of lunches, had my friend Nagaraj help me out, and went home and read another 1,000 pages. I was physically sick for the first 3 months, every day. Now, after those 3 months, I was so happy. I was so excited. I had a career that was like a rocket ship. I was able to retire at 34 years old because of the knowledge I gained, and then do passion projects like changing the world and providing free education or low-cost education that normally would cost $20,000 that I sell for a day's pay of work, or as a cloud architect, because I love it, because I don't need to do this kind of work because of the career that I built. So I'd say give it some time. If you don't know something, focus on getting it. And if you don't like it after 3 months, go somewhere else. Go somewhere else and do something. Sandeep, what's your perspective? And then I see Letitia has a question.
Yeah. Same question?
Yeah, do you have a different perspective on the same question or the same answer?
So yeah, suppose if it's like this, if you ask me my experience, people actually ask, I mean, face that and come to me in the same question. And I ask them, okay, you want to become DevOps engineer, but you don't want to leave a current role, I mean, or current what you like what you're doing. Why not do side projects? I mean, that's the thing how I did it. So I wanted to keep my JavaScript development and PHP development projects, and in the side, I just wanted to learn about DevOps and get experience with it. If I move from the JavaScript project to the DevOps directly, my pay gonna be cut, or maybe the challenges I face, I don't know, I'm going to be succeed or I'm going to be a failure at that time, because I was learning and kind of experience growing moment that time. So what I did, I keep my existing job. I took side project, side client we call it. Side client give us the challenges. I learn it because that was a learning phase. Then try to make that happen, try to complete the task. And over the time, after 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, I become so confident. I leave my like that kind of slowly. I leave my JavaScript development or PHP development projects and start focusing on the DevOps projects or the cloud projects, cloud related projects. So that's how I develop kind of my scenario here. So like don't go directly if you are not confident, or if you don't want to. If you have like we have to think about the financial part also. If I living a current project which is giving a good financial returns and I'm moving to something that can be risky, I like the next within few months I can leave it. I mean I can like they can kick me out from the opportunity. We don't know. So we have to prepare for that. Like think strategically. If you're a single earning person in a family, keep your existing incoming source or the what your the main incoming source, then learn about other things. Once you're confident, then only leave the current job, whatever development you're doing, go to DevOps or cloud career, whatever you want. So have the confidence and build the confidence. That's more important. Not just having the confidence, build confidence. See that you are interested in the particular career path. Stay there for at least 1 year, then make a decision. Not directly. I will say go slow method. Don't go directly jump on.
Excellent. Now, there's two questions that are kind of in my area, so I'm going to address these. The first question is from Letitia. Without real-time experience, can you get a job as a cloud architect? The answer is yes. Well, the key is, what is this experience? And let me tell you what that is. If all your experience is configuring S3 and EC2 instances and maybe setting up a WordPress site and Route 53, that does not qualify as experience. It is impossible to get hired like that, or near impossible. What you should do, and what we do, and our students get hired every day. In fact, one of my students in England just sent me a message. I just got hired by a Big Four consulting company today, and he turned down 3 jobs in the last 4 months. Now, he had no cloud background at all. Why did he turn down 3 jobs? He went on one cloud architect interview, and they said, well, this isn't really cloud architecture. We want DevOps. And he's like, thank you very much, but I don't want to do DevOps. He went on another interview in the UK, and he said it's 50% architecture, 50% DevOps. They offered him a position. He said, no, thank you. I don't want to do DevOps. Today, he was offered a real cloud architect job, and he took it. So what is the experience that matters? When you actually look at what employers care about, they care, do you know the network and the data center? Because that's the cloud. So I suggest you do the following to your resume to help you get hired. Works for my students all the time. The top line of your resume needs to be something big and important. It needs to scream, read me, read me, read me. So for me, it says Mike Gibbs, MS, MBA, CCIE, Google Professional Cloud Architect, and I usually list an AWS certification. Sandeep's got a master's degree and a couple professional certifications. Top line makes it clear to read it. Right beneath the top line, we were all taught in school to put an objective on our resume. No, it's the worst idea we were ever given. An objective says, what do you want? What do I want from the company? I don't know about you, but when I go to a store to buy a computer, the computer doesn't ask me what I want. It doesn't care. I buy what I want. And guess what? Employers buy what they want. What is buying? Hiring you. So you got to be what the employers care about. So when you have an objective that says, this is what I want, it makes you look selfish. It basically makes you unemployable to employers. Swap that out with an executive summary. I'm making it up as I go along. Mine might say something like, accomplished CEO with 30 years experience in technology, network architect, cloud architect, security architect, to this banking industry, this thing, lots of experience with billion-dollar-plus architectures and closing billion-dollar deals, experience leading teams, experience with his sales, experience with relationship development, executive summary. Why? It says, read me, read me, read me, read me. Now, when you're new and you don't have experience, you need to put your experience on your resume. How do you do this? I'll tell you what we do with our students. So Letitia, you're going to know what to do. We create a research and development section on our resume. And what do our students put on the research and development section? I'm going to tell you right now, these are the same labs I recommend. And if you want to watch that video, which Chris from my team could say how we build cloud architects, it's a free video to watch. Or you could take our webinar on Monday where we'll tell you exactly how to get hired. Please press the link of that webinar on Monday, how to get hired, as well how to, for anybody that wants to sample to see what it feels like to be an architect, we do it free on Tuesday too. So put it on the resume. Now on your resume, what are experience? Set up server virtualization with VMware ESXi. Set up server virtualization with KVM. Set up Docker containers. Set up Kubernetes containers. After you're done that, build a Linux firewall. Then build a Linux VPN concentrator. When you're done that, build the Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stack. When you're done that, set up Samba shares, meaning Linux sharing to Windows. When you're done that, set up NFS, network file system. When you're done that, build the cloud. I mean it, build the cloud. When you're done that, deal with Microsoft Active Directory. Put every one of those things under the research and development section. Why? I'm going to tell you what hiring managers care about. I've interviewed thousands, and I am one. Hiring managers care about the following things. Technical competency, can you do the job? By showing them you can build the cloud, not configure an S3 bucket, you are competent and employers look at it. By doing this, you have experience, real experience that employers care about. Employers know that the cloud is nothing more than a network and a data center, so they can't hire you if you don't have network and data center experience, but you have it. You put it in the research and development section. And that's what my students do. And that's why they're super successful with it. You put everything there that's real. And when you're done, don't go to HR. Don't let HR kill your career. Use an executive recruiter. We have 150 we use with our students. They have relationship with the employer. Here's what it's like. I can tell you right now, this is the way I hire people and this is the way my students do it. I call my recruiter, Steve, in New York. He's the best recruiter I know. I know lots of them, but I only say he's the best because he's placed me in 5 jobs. I've interviewed for 5 companies and I've been hired by all 5. So what did I do? I will call Steve and say, Steve, I need the best DevOps engineer you got. And what's Steve gonna say? Mike, I got this guy Sandeep Das. Great DevOps engineer. He lives in India. Are you okay with him working remote? I'm gonna say, I don't care where he lives. Can he do the job? And then I'm gonna interview Sandeep. And guess what? I heard from Steve that Sandeep is super smart and great to work with. I'm pre-biased to like Sandeep. So now when I interview Sandeep, if he does a good job or even a mediocre job, I still like him because I'm biased to like him. Then here's what I do. I say, Sandeep, I'm going to hire you. Then what do? I send a message. I tell Sandeep, hey, by the way, you got to fill out this silly job application. I'm already hiring you, but it's required by HR. So he fills out the application. I then call HR and saying, this person's filling out application. I've made the decision to hire them. Their start date is here. I need a compensation package in the upper 10% of what we can pay this guy because he is the best that I know and he's widely recognized. I need to hire him. What's going to happen is Sandeep will get an offer letter from HR. I will personally call Sandeep and offer him the position. Now, here's what may actually happen. Now, because this happens all the time. Sandeep gets hired. Sandeep's working for me. Sandeep gets promoted at the end of the year. He gets promoted in the next year. And it's not uncommon for Sandeep to now get a rejection letter from HR. Sorry, Sandeep, you don't meet the minimum required capabilities for this position. Now, he's already been there. He's been promoted. He's still working there. That's how far HR is away from the hiring process for most of these good architect positions. So if you know how to interview, if you have the right skills, if you can present the skills, if you know what the hiring manager desires, and here's what the hiring manager desires: technical competency above all else. Honesty and integrity. Again, honesty and integrity. Where do most interviews fail? I'm going to tell you right now. I ask someone a technical question. They don't know the answer. Instead of saying, I don't know the answer, or I'm sorry, I've not had the opportunity to learn this yet. I'm highly motivated, highly energetic, highly enthusiastic. I have expertise in X, Y, Z, but I need to be purely honest with you. This is not my specialty, but if you need it, I'll be an expert as soon as possible. That's a winning answer. What do most people do? They lie. How does OSPF work? Open shortest path first. It works like this. And they make it up. Okay, what happened to that interview? He lied to me. Trash. I can't hire someone I don't trust. So 99% of all tech interviews end because of a lie. I don't know how many people you've interviewed, Sandeep, I'll get back to it, but I'm sure they've lied to you too. 99% of interviews are from well-intentioned people that have been told, you can't say you don't know something, so they lie to you. So what do employers want? Technical competency. That's what Sandeep and I were talking about. Then they want someone that can do the job, meaning technical competent. Then they want someone they can trust. Now, the next component that employers look for is, are you safe? Sandeep knows what I mean here. What are you safe means, if I hire Sandeep to work on my architecture and he gets there and he sees something he doesn't understand. Here's what he's going to do. Mike, what did you do here? And that's great. He's not going to just do something. He knows what he knows what he doesn't know, and he knows how to get the answers quickly. And he will not cause $1 billion outage. I've seen bankruptcies, $100 million outages, $200 million, and people that don't know what they know and they don't know. So let's cover it again. Technically competent, honest with integrity, someone that can do the job. Now, when you ask as many thousands of hiring managers as I do, you get the next things. They want energetic, enthusiastic, passionate. Would you hire this guy? Or do you want to hire someone like Sandy? Look how excited he is here. That's what I need on my team. He loves DevOps. It's his life.
Energetic people, yeah. That's the important part.
Energy, he's passionate about it.
Exactly.
And we look for that. And not only do we look for that, what else do we look for? Can they bring out the best in others? That's emotional intelligence. Are you a team player? Why is it so important to be a team player? If it's an end-to-end solution, I can tell you what it's going to look like. It's going to be me as an infrastructure guy. Then I'm going to bring a regular cloud architect with me. I'm going to bring a cloud security architect. I'm going to have half a dozen cloud engineers. I'm going to bring in a Sysops person that's going to be looking about the world after we design it. How do we turn it over? And I'm going to have a bunch of DevOps people like Sandeep on my team. And the better people that I can find, the more skilled they are, the less people I need on my team. That's the team. So I need a team player. I need people that can work with a wide variety of people from all over the world that think differently. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. So this is what hiring managers want. And of course, someone that goes above and beyond. So don't be one of those people that post on social media, the 40-hour work week is too much. I promise you that won't be good for you. So we've got 3 minutes. So with 3 minutes left, I want to do this. I want to thank Sanjeev for all the work he does in the community. He does an incredible amount of good training in the community. I want to congratulate him for that. I want to thank him for that. And I want to continue to collaborate with Sandeep because I think what he does some great work for the world. Sandeep students that want to learn architecture, come to us. We are happy to help his people with architecture. These are very special careers with lots of career potential. And I love when we can get people from different backgrounds to share experiences. We work with network architects, even though I am one, we still work with network architects. We work with security architects. We work with DevOps people. It takes everything. So learn, there is no one-man band. As much as I liked that movie Rambo many years ago, there's 6 people in a SEAL platoon for a reason. It takes more than one person to do something. Build your team. Focus on the actual job. Learn what it takes to be good. When Sandeep mentioned side projects, you don't have to be employed to do a side project. Buy a couple of Raspberry Pis. Set up scripting on one. Set up a VPN concentrator on another. Build 2 VPNs and create a site-to-site VPN. Run some DevOps tools on one side. Do anything you want. This is your chance. Practice, practice, practice. Do things. You know what? Go find a small business that needs help. Help them. Put it on your resume. Ask for an internship. Now, you can do that too. You can use social media and say, I'm a highly motivated, highly energetic, highly enthusiastic professional. I am really passionate about DevOps, or I'm really passionate about architecture. I would like to do an internship. Do you know how many people get internships that way? The world will come to you. Now I'm going to give you one last piece of advice, and it's related to psychology and sociology. Do not ever make a post that says, I've been rejected by positions. I'm desperate, I need help. Could you please like this or comment this? Please never do this. This is a community service announcement. When you make a post like that, it signals the community that there's something wrong with you. People believe that when everybody feels a certain way, it must be true. So the second someone says, I've been rejected, it tells the world there's something wrong with you. And the more people like the post and comment on the post and share the post, the more people say, don't hire you. So if you want to use social media to get a job, and I encourage it, get on social media and say the following. I am a classically trained DevOps engineer. I am a cloud architect who's got this amount of experience. I have these certifications. I'm super motivated, energetic, and enthusiastic. And I'm looking for a company that I can help them grow with the use of my skills. Now, you're going to be flooded by requests from recruiters and hiring managers for that one, because now you are a problem solver. Companies hire people to solve problems. So solve a problem, show that you can solve a problem, show excellence in everything you do, build your brand better, faster, cheaper, whatever your brand is. The communication skills, DevOps, architecture, I don't care. Focus all your time and effort into being wonderful at one thing. Get the world to know that's your skill set, and the world will come to you. I get an offer every single day of the week without applying. I'm sure Sandeep gets 5 offers every week, if not 10 offers.
Just to get back, is 5 offers is 10 offers a day minimum.
Yeah.
Just in LinkedIn, if I'm excluding my emails, it's
Right,
minimum
exactly.
5 to 10 offers in a day. That's what's happening.
And I get less than that. I get about 5 a week, but the ones that I get are these enterprise architects. They're
Big ones.
But that's why it's less of them, because there's less jobs. It's not a better skill, it's a different skill. All these skills are equally valuable. Whether you can communicate to the CEO or whether you're the person that configures the things and build it, you have absolutely nothing unless you've got a team. Sandeep, do you have any closing words to say?
Which one?
Do you have any closing words to say or anything else to say before we close this?
Oh yeah. So just that once people actually come to this profession, be the DevOps cloud architect, the main problem they face is getting the job or getting internship. So in that just because the emotional intelligence part that you covered is spot on. That is no second saying that. But again, people don't show their skill set. What I've seen that those whoever show their skill set to the world, to social media, they get opportunities like us. I mean, they are also in work field. They're confusing where to join. But those people who like a shy person don't show up their skills, they don't get the offers, because people, if the world don't know what you're doing, they're not can see inside your mind what happening. You have to show the skills. So whoever thinking, you want to become a DevOps engineer, want to become a cloud architect, no matter what, show off your skills to the world. Write articles, post videos, post demos, so that people know you are doing something, you know about this particular topic. Then only they can reach out to you. That is my appeal to everyone, that if you are good at something, show to the world that you are good on that particular point. Then you will get offers. You can cry on everywhere that I'm not getting a job. That's okay. And to be honest, that is my concern also. If you ask in the social media, you're getting rejected everywhere, not getting job, good companies will not offer you job. But if you say the world, see what wonderful thing I'm doing, see what wonderful article I've written, then only people will like you and will give you a job. So that's the difference, and that's what you do. That's my inter point. So even if someone's saying that you're not getting job, that means you're not popularizing, you're not creating a brand of yourself. You have to make sure people know you. You have to keep sharing posts, articles, videos, doesn't matter what, so that people notice you. If you notice the people, you will get by them, and they will send you the opportunities. That's the important point here. And that's the most important point I can say. Because if you learn something, you'll not get job, you will get demotivated. If you learn something, you show to the world, you get the opportunities, you will get more motivated. That's the difference.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Sandeep. I actually have some students waiting for me on another call. I will answer the one last question. Are quick labs enough? Not even 1% of what's enough. We gave you the examples today of build your own cloud, build your own data center. These are enough. Quick labs are nowhere near enough. So it's been a real honor having you on, Sandeep. It's been a real privilege speaking to my students, Sandeep students. I really love this. I'm going to try and reach out to Sandeep and do something on his channel sometime very soon. I think these kind of conversations are very valuable. I think people need to know what the cloud careers actually are so they can build the best one that they need best. So thank you all for attending. For those people that sent Chris a chance to attend a free sampling class that actually started 3 minutes ago, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to kick that off right now. So thank you. Thank you, Sandeep. I will sync up with you later. And again, I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for staying this long, listening to us and having an interactive conversation via the comments. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.